All right, let's talk a little bit about after-death communication. There's a great book out there called Hello from Heaven by Bill and Judith Guggenheim. And they talk about all the signals and signs that people send us from the spirit world to try to let us know that they're there. And I wondered if pets do this sort of thing as well. Do they try to send us signs and signals to let us know that they're around us?
Yeah, they do. They do it all the time. And I'll go over some of the signals, but first I want to say that it's only successful if their human is in a good space about their passing.
Okay.
If the human is holding on to their energy, if the human is stuck in that grief, and you know, sometimes I meet people who want closure on their pet passing, and I'll connect in with them, their energy, the pet, the soul of the pet, and I'll get, all right, this feels like it's happened like last week. And they'll say, no, this happened 14 years ago, because they haven't moved. Yeah. I mean, just picture holding that energy so tight that every day they're keeping that wound so open. So if someone's in that type of position, they're not going to be able to receive messages very well.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that more in a minute if you want to, but the messages, let's say it's somebody who's like, I miss them and I love him, but they're in a more balanced place with it. They're kind of moving forward. They accept that he's crossed over, etc. If it's someone in that type of balanced place, they send messages in some of the same ways that humans will send messages from the other side. And that's, you know, a popular one would be a bird who's crossed over, and for no reason whatsoever, suddenly one of the bird's feathers is in the middle of the room. You know, I think that's cool. Or the dog's toy shows up. Sometimes they'll get messages through by their name being repeated several times. So you'll be watching TV and you'll hear Rudy. And then you'll be reading a book and you'll read Rudy, and then half an hour later someone talks about their friend Rudy, you know, and it's just a way of saying, hi, I'm here.
Yeah.
They are very effective at getting messages through, but we have to be in the right place to receive the messages. And if we're not as people, then it can be very frustrating, because it's like, I want to see.
Yeah.
One of the most effective ways that animals can get their messages through from the other side is actually dreams. And a lot of people, even the people who've been in grief for 14 years, they'll get like a dream in which the animal shows up and says hi, or they're just petting the animal, just a quick little togetherness, and that's the whole dream.
Yeah.
But that's about all they can get through, because that human has all that grief. But the dreams is a really popular way they bring their messages through.
That's great. I know with people, dream visitations like that, usually they say that the dream is much more vivid than their other dreams. Like, you know, it's like, and it's something that if they had it 2 years ago, they remember it as if they had it last night. They're easy to remember. Probably the same thing, you think, or?
I haven't experienced that. I've experienced it. I mean, because think of it this way: for a human to come through in a dream,
yeah.
Because the veil is so thick and it's a human's energy, it's just, there has to be a lot more energy behind it, which to me feels like it would make the dream more vivid. For an animal to do it, it's not as big of a deal. So it can kind of feel more routine. I'd love to say, yes, it would be this powerful visual thing, but I haven't heard that. The animals, they come through in kind of a regular dream. But if they show up, you pretty much have to trust it.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah, I see. So there's a theme here that's going on, and again, it just keeps going back to the fact that the animals are always somewhat connected to the spirit world, even while they're here. So everything's easier, even their transition back, and then, like you say, their ability to communicate once back in the spirit world, because it's almost as though they never really left there. You know, at least most of them. As a medium, what do you know? You communicate. I know you communicate with animals who are living, as well as past. But when you're communicating with animals who are past, what are the typical things that they want to communicate to their owners, their loved ones still here?
A lot of times it'll have to do with the work that they were helping their human do. And it will be, hey, you're doing better with your anxiety, or hey, see, you got a new job and it feels good. You know, they kind of want to let their human know, I've been watching, and give them a little update. They basically want the human to know, I've been around, I love you, I see what you're doing a good job. They want to give messages of encouragement.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that it's always the human who wants to communicate with the pet on the other side. I don't have pets knocking in my head saying, I've got to tell her something. You know how other mediums working with humans, the human shows up while they're going to the bathroom or something, you know, the deceased loved one, oh, I've got the message, okay, and they've got to get the message out. Animals don't work that way. It's us as humans, we're so connected and often so worried that we're the ones seeking out the messages, whereas the animals kind of sit in that place of, hey, love, and I'm here, and okay, you want to talk? Cool, we'll talk.
Yeah, it's interesting. Whether it be a private reading or if a medium's on stage giving, random readings to people in the audience, obviously there's a lot of spirits who are trying to get through to someone who's a medium who's on stage.
Yep.
But when they're giving readings, I've seen this so many times that the medium will say, oh, a little border collie just ran in front of me. Yep. They're not trying to impress upon any messages. Just, hey, look, I'm here. Notice me, exactly. I'm here. Just let them know I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
You're totally right.
They're so much more relaxed, aren't they?
Well, they're just not all caught up in all that human stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny because animals can understand everything that we know, do, say, feel, hear, but they also know not to bother with a lot of it.
It's fascinating to me. I love the message that's getting through in this interview. All right. So we know that you and other mediums can connect with animals in spirit. Can anyone you talked about this at the beginning, can anyone, even if we don't feel as though we have that ability, do we have the ability to connect with our deceased pets in the afterlife?
Yes, everybody has the ability to do it. It's just a matter of kind of figuring out a way that works for you, learning a technique, because most people can't just from scratch start doing it.
Yeah.
Because we're human and we put up little blocks like, I can't just do that.
Right.
Yeah. So it feels good to have someone say, all right, do step 1, step 2, step 3.
Right.
But everybody can do it. The only people I run into who can't do it are people who have like a learning type problem. They don't believe they can do it, so they are not settling their brain down enough. You know how I keep talking about you have to be clear? I was talking about not full of grief but clear. If someone's not clear or grounded, they're not going to be able to do it. So there have been a couple of people in the years of me teaching people to do it who just couldn't sit still for 15 minutes to get the information. So it was kind of like they couldn't even start the technique because their brain and their mind were so going. But pretty much everybody else can do it.
Does it make it difficult for the medium as well if someone is dealing with such deep grief for you to be able to connect with the animal, or does that not affect the reading?
It can affect the reading, but I've learned how to change that.
Yeah.
First of all, I've had to learn how to be very calm, clear, and grounded despite whatever is going on around me. A person could be having the biggest crying spell, so upset about what we're doing, and I have to remain pretty much like I am now, or the connection won't stay.
Yeah.
So, there have been times when that person's upset energy has kind of overtaken me, and I've learned how to kind of push it aside so that I can get around it and get back to the connection. But it makes me feel like, oh my gosh, this person must feel I'm heartless, because here they are so upset and I'm still like this, but I have to stay like this. But a person's grief can get in the way of me doing the reading. It can get in the way of what they're receiving.
Yeah.
Which is why when I'm working with someone, I help them manage their energy, manage their grief, understand it a little bit so that it's not kind of pushing them down. Because everybody's going to go through grief when an animal passes or a human passes, when something happens like that. But there are ways to help yourself through it rather than letting it kind of take you all the way down. And
Right.
at first it's going to take everybody all the way down, you know?
Sure.
But how do you come back from that? Helping people come back from that is actually something I love to do, because once they start to understand the bigger picture, it's cool to watch them then kind of get a glimpse of, oh, and if I stay like this for a little bit, I can have some healing and I can get some information that really helps me.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of reasons that we grieve, but if you actually do some investigation of the afterlife on your own, like having a reading with a psychic medium, and seeing that evidence, this medium telling you things that you they could not possibly know, about the person or the animal and spirit, the messages that are coming through, maybe about memories that, again, the medium could not possibly know. When you have that kind of evidence and you start to believe in the afterlife, or you eventually get to a knowing about the afterlife, it gives you a sense of comfort. You never stop grieving the loss that takes place, the
Right.
physical loss, the companionship, those types of things. But I think a big part of the pain that comes with grief comes with just not knowing if, are they in pain? I mean, these are some of the biggest questions. Are they not? Like, are they okay?
Yep.
Are they in pain? Are they still sick? Or, all these kinds of questions. Once you recognize that they're in a place of peace and love and warmth and, and joy, then I think all of those aspects that cause our grief to be more painful get pushed aside. And now it's just about the loss of the physical loss, the loss of companionship, not being able to hug them and that sort of thing, be with them. But even knowing that you can talk to them and they can hear you, sort of thing, has got to help, I'm sure. Which brings me to one of the next questions, which is, when we think of our pets after they've passed, maybe talk to them or pray to them, do they always hear us, or is there something we need to do? Dial them up, or what needs to be done in order for them to communicate with them, even if we can't hear them?
It's funny because everybody asks that question. I'll say, call on your guides or talk to your pet, or let them know, and they'll say, well, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks you have, and that's because there's a lot of religions out there and a lot of different teachers out there who say you have to say it this way and you have to say it that way to dial into the right energy, blah, blah, blah. In my experience, you just have to have the intention. Set your intention. I want to talk to Pesky. I want to let Pesky know I love him. And send a picture or a feeling or the words to Pesky, and he'll get it. There are not special words. Perhaps there are. I'm sure there are for certain other things. But to connect in and let an animal know, hey, I'll be home in an hour, or the plan changed, or hope you're okay, we'll be back from vacation in 3 weeks,
Yep.
or stop touching your brother, whatever it happens to be, it's just through intention of, I want to send this message to Pesky, this is who I'm thinking of, and this is where the message is going.
No, that's cool. Can I just ask, because you kind of glanced by it earlier in something that you said, and so you made me curious. What do pets do in the afterlife? What are they doing up there?
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
No.
I know what they do when they're connecting with us.
Yeah.
I know what they do when they talk about, hey, I've seen Mom, and they give us updates, but I don't have. They don't give me, there isn't, like, if you ask an animal, what do you do all the time? I'll get some laying in the sun, it's just being. It's not, I'm visiting everybody 4 times a week, and that, it's not like that. There's no scheduled thing. It just feels like being. But I haven't had an animal, any animal, and you've got to know that this question's asked a lot.
Sure.
Really explain that in detail. I feel like it's something that we as humans aren't really supposed to get yet.
Yeah, it might be beyond us, our comprehension.
Like we can't understand. I get laying in the sun. Okay, probably isn't literally laying in the sun.
Yes, right, exactly.
But that's that layer they put on there so we can understand. They're trying to make it so humans understand.
They dumb it down for us.
They pretty much do.
Yeah, okay. All right, so what can pet owners do? You talked about some things, but maybe you could just give us some basic guidelines. What can we do first to help our pets transition if we know that they're sick, or especially if we know that they're dying? Let's just say they're starting. We know maybe they're about to go. They can't control their bowel movements anymore, whatever it may be. These little signs or big signs. What can we do to help with their transition while they're here? And then after they've passed, is there something that we can do after they've passed in any way, or do they not need our help in that way?
So with the upcoming transition, it's really individual in a sense, because it's, hey, I'd like to be here, or I'd like to do this, or I'd like these people around. But even if you can't communicate with animals like I can, mm-hmm. you still, of course, know your animal well enough to know who he really likes, who is a calming influence, what his favorite things are, how comfortable he would be at the vet versus at home.
Yeah.
And so, it's really about comfort. That's what the end is.
Yep.
And it's about, now remember, since the animal plans his death, it's about the human feeling like they did everything that they could mm-hmm. to feel good about the passing.
I see.
If that makes sense. It's not so much like you have to have all the right things. Oh my God, I didn't talk to Danielle, and so I didn't know if he wanted his favorite pet. It's not about that.
Right.
It's, do I feel like I did everything?
Yeah.
And if I feel good about it, and I feel okay with this passing, then that's going to be everything that the animal needs.
Something I learned years ago, and again, what you're saying here is that there's no right or wrong. You really can't do any wrong. So don't get down on yourself if you didn't do something. But something I wasn't even aware a few years ago until I heard somebody did it. Growing up, it was like we dropped our pets off, at the doctor. We had like a Dr. Kevorkian who just wanted to put all our pets, oh, he's got a cold, put him under, and I lost a lot of pets that way. But we used to just drop them off, and all of a sudden, somewhere in my adulthood, someone tells me, "Oh no, I was with him, and I held him when they gave him the shot, and I had music playing." The first person who told me did everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They did it at the vet, but they had music playing, and they had this beautiful bed that they had brought for him. You can go that far. Most vets will allow that sort of thing, won't they?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They'll allow you to bring whatever you want in the room. I haven't actually encountered anybody who couldn't bring whatever they wanted, and people will bring the big comforter from their bed because that's his favorite comforter.
Yeah.
They will go all out, and I haven't actually ever heard of a vet not accepting that.
And some vets will actually come to the house. You just probably have to ask, right?
Yep. And that really, I know it's more expensive than a regular vet visit, but for some animals, actually, let's say for some humans, it would be too hard on them to bring their pet to the vet when they see their pet being visibly, physically upset. So it's going to feel better to the human and calmer for everybody to bring the vet to home.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
I didn't answer the second part of your question.
Which was after they passed.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
Yes. Afterwards, the best thing that a person can do is actually, and you're going to say, of course, but is actually work on healing themselves, work on thinking about the animal positively, work on understanding the passing, work on any guilt feelings that come up, because the clearer that person is, the more the animal's going to be able to get through messages, maybe hang out, maybe continue working with that human as a guide from the other side. So it's kind of like, all right, my pet crossed, I feel bad, I miss him, but I'm going to do this in a healthy way so that we can still experience some things together, and I can feel good about him and see what comes of that.
Yeah, because what I've heard from you during this whole interview is because they see the bigger picture, and they really come from a place of compassion and forgiveness for us. And they seem, I would imagine that they are more concerned about what we're going through after their passing. And so therefore, the more suffering that we have, probably the harder it is on them. And that's probably true with people as well. But, you know, the way you have described pets and their role in our lives, it seems really important that we do what we can to go easy on ourselves and not start to feel bad about all the things we could have or should have done with that pet, and just and move past it and know they're in a great place and we did the best that we could, right?
Yeah. If we're stuck in that place where we're feeling, I feel so badly, I wasn't there. You know, I wasn't there when he crossed over, and I feel so badly. I left for school, or I left for work, or whatever it was. I meet a lot of people who feel badly about that. The guilt carries over afterwards, and they spend so much time feeling badly that they never spend any time remembering all the good.
Yeah.
And that slows down the healing, and it slows down the animal's ability to reconnect.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I just want to say, for all those people who feel badly because they weren't there, the animal didn't want them there. That's what it comes down to. That for whatever reason, that animal felt it was better to cross over alone.
Sure. Yeah, and there could be a million reasons for that. You know,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
one being thinking it was going to be more difficult on you. You know.
I ran into one recently where the whole family was so high strung
Yep.
that they all would have run around like chickens with their heads cut off if they had been there.
Yeah.
So instead, the animal, he crossed over during the night.
Yeah.
And sure, they woke up and they were really upset, but it saved them for him doing it that way, from running around like that and then
Yeah.
feeling like they didn't do the right thing. So, I mean, he did a nice thing there.
Oh, that's cool. All right, now, one of the things that you do is animal communication, and I mentioned this in the introduction, but you're also known as a soul contract intuitive. And a soul contract intuitive is basically you use your psychic abilities to recognize what our contracts are with one another before we come into this life. So, especially the significant people in our lives, I know you can take it pretty much to anybody that we get in touch with, but certainly, our siblings and our parents and our coworkers and, our lovers and spouses, whatever it may be, those people play such a significant role in our lives. And we have contracts with them before coming into this life as to what we're going to do for them, what they're going to do for us. Did I describe that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, perfectly.
And so we do the same thing with the animals in our lives, right? So could you explain how this soul contract idea applies to our relationships with our pets, even though I know you've touched upon it throughout this whole interview?
Yeah, I pretty much touched upon it, the whole time without using the word soul contract. So,
Yeah.
so it'll be easy for people to understand now.
Yeah.
It's the idea that the animal is doing everything possible to complete or work with the contract that he has with his human. So this is a contract that is put in place before the animal and the human are in their bodies, so before embodiment. And that contract says something like, this dog is going to help this person become more independent, or this cat is going to help this woman feel good about being single. I know those are similar, but they're actually very different
Yeah.
ideas. So a soul contract will center on kind of a main theme for a person, something that they came in to work on. What I've seen is that we all have our soul purpose, which makes sense, what we came here to do, but we also have these soul lessons, things that we want to master in this lifetime. And usually the soul contract between an animal and a person addresses one of the soul lessons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfectly. And so, I mean, really, this just ties together everything that you've talked about their higher purpose in our lives, and how, yes, they're serving us more than, what most of us think is that we're here to take care of our pets. And of course we are physically,
Yep.
but this seems to come from a more spiritual and emotional place, what you're talking about here. Can you give us an example, maybe just one example or two examples of what a soul contract with an animal, maybe even your own, with one of your dogs or something is
Sure.
you don't have to do that, but I know you've
No,
shared
I can.
You've shared it before. So.
And actually, I want to, because here's the thing. So I've got this ability. I can connect with animals. I can communicate. You know, you'd think I would have perfect animals, right?
Right. Right.
I don't. And here's the reason why. My animals are helping me be better. So the way that an animal will often choose to carry out a soul contract is through a behavior or a characteristic or a trait that maybe isn't perfect. So I have an animal, I have Bella. Anybody who's listened to anything I've ever done has heard about Bella. So, and Bella is an excited, happy chocolate lab, you know, exuberant. And her soul contract with me is to help me always be the leader. You know, to help me always, because there have been times in my life where I'll take the back seat and be like, I don't know, I'm just learning, I don't know. So when I go into that energy, exuberant Bella will start jumping on people. And you know, she's now she's less, but she was 80 pounds for a good part of her life. So 80 pounds of chocolate lab going doing, doing right on a person, you know, really kind of made me go, whoa, what's going on here? Yeah. I had to take a look at the soul contract, had to work with my energy and how I was thinking about myself and feeling within myself. And the better I felt, the more kind of leadership I took in my own life and control and like type A drive, you know, that go thing, the more I stood within that, the less Bella jumped. So that was her method for getting her soul contract message through to me about how I needed to be behaving in order to move forward in my life. Did that make sense?
That's amazing. It's very subtle. But what a great reminder that must be.
No, doing.
Yeah, well, in that way, yeah. But the purpose of it, yeah, you know, certainly you could go through a whole lifetime and not know why the dog is jumping on people, and so yeah, it's subtle in that when it's happening, it brings your awareness back to say, hey, you know what, you know, I shouldn't. Maybe you're being a pushover in this incident. You know, take charge, show a more leadership role in this whatever's going on here. I love that. That's excellent.
But it also, I mean, so many people think my dogs are going to be perfect, but with soul contracts in existence, I'm not perfect, so they're not going to be perfect.
Well, yeah, what would be the purpose of it, right?
Right. Why would I be here human?
Yeah.
Why would they be here?
Right. Just, you wouldn't have an animal in your life.
Right.
Yeah. And what's interesting now, I've had readings from you, and people know that underneath this video, there's a link to the article that I wrote about my readings with you, and one of the things that we did a reading of spirit communication, but we also talked about soul contracts with people who are in my life. So you do the same thing with people who are in your life, and it's just as fascinating. Same concept. We're here to teach one another and help one another with different things in our lifetime goals here, or whatever it may be that we came here to do. And but one of the things I recognized, both from recognizing the soul contract with my dog and my soul contract with a relative of mine, was that it helped me understand both of them better and gave me a bigger picture of what was going on. And so maybe we'll say with the relative, if there were things that might have annoyed me before, after having the reading with you and recognizing the big picture, and it made total sense once you brought it to my attention, all of a sudden those things were not annoying to me anymore. I had compassion for why the person behaved in that way and treated me in the way that they did. It was such a relief. It brought such a sense of inner peace. This kind of work is really important, and I'm sure. I mean, I say that as a compliment to you. I also say it for our viewers to understand that if someone's pushing your buttons out there, there's probably a reason why. Just like Bella is jumping on people, there's a reason why, right? Yep.
And that's the place to start as well. If someone's pushing your buttons, what state are you in when they're pushing your buttons? What's going on at the time? What just happened? What's about to happen? And through that, you're going to be able to figure out what the soul contract between you and that animal is, or you and that person.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, we don't all need someone to do this for us.
Right.
When I had the reading with you, I there was no way I possibly thought I could do it on my own. I started doing some stuff this summer where I would go into sort of like an altered state. You might call it hypnosis, whatever you want to call it. And I would go in and I would work on my own. Well, someone was helping me with the guiding me into the altered state, into the hypnotic state. Once there, we would work on some of these soul contracts that I had with other people in my life. And it was the exact same thing. Once I saw the big picture, and it was just a bird's eye view on it. All of a sudden, everything changed. My relationship with that person changed. So, if someone feels like they're not ready yet to try to do that on their own, I highly recommend that they call you up and get a soul contract reading with you, whether it be with people or pets. But I think sometimes, they can have that reading with you, and then that leads them to later being able to do it on their own.
Yeah. And now you can see why when we're talking about the crossing over of animals, because I have such a big picture view from the animals, it's not negative for me.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. I mean, I love to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get the big picture.
Well, with that said, and maybe those are your final words, I didn't know if you had any final words or advice for people who are grieving the loss of a pet. Anything that maybe I missed asking you about or that you think is important?
I would say for those people who are grieving the loss of their pet, it's helpful to step back and think about, was this perhaps a good time for this to happen? What is there a bigger picture, a bigger lesson I can take from this? If my pet really planned this out and decided that now was the right time, can I figure out why now was the right time? Because if you know why, it helps so much. Like, oh, I was getting a new job, I just broke up with my boyfriend, and I've started this whole new career, all this stuff was changing in my life, and my work with Josie, or whatever your animal's name, it was no longer necessary. He got me to this place, and it was no longer necessary. So there's always going to be a reason why, and if you can step back and look and explore for the why, when you start coming up with little bits of it, you're going to start feeling a little better. It doesn't mean that you won't miss your pet. No. It doesn't mean you won't feel the loss, but understanding it can help with some of the other stuff that we humans put in there along with death.
I love it. That's beautiful. I want to thank you so much. And I want to mention some of the services that you offer are intuitive consultations. And so that can be regarding just personal matters, any personal matters, kind of guidance that someone might need, direction, but also talking about soul contracts with either people or animals. You do animal communication. And again, that can be with animals who are alive or past. Either way, you do both. You do clearings, and if they read my article, I had a clearing, which was really cool. I really enjoyed that. That was new for me, so I had a clearing, sort of removing energetic blockages, right? Could you kind of describe it as that? And they can read all about this on your website. But you also do, and this is one of my favorite things, is that you do intuitive mentoring. And so you can just take average people like me who never think they could do this in the world. Well, I'll just give one example. You gave a workshop at a place that we have, which is actually where I'm sitting right now in Kennebunkport, Maine. You gave a workshop teaching pretty much the same stuff that you teach with your intuitive mentoring. I had sat through most of the workshop. I had to leave and take my dog for a walk, actually. I came back, and when I did, you were doing this test where you had photographs on the wall, and I walked in and you said, "Okay, Bob, what are you getting on this dog right here?" Which happened to be Bella, wasn't it? It was Bella. Was it?
Yeah, Bella? It was on Bella.
Yeah, it was Bella. So here I am. I'm in the spotlight. I didn't know what was going on. And so I just started spouting these things off that were popping into my head. And lo and behold, I mean, like 80% of it was really accurate. I was blown away. And things, like I knew that she had been in a car accident, not a car accident. She had been hit by a car, had this trauma. There was things that I couldn't have possibly known. I am not a medium, and I'm not a psychic, but you showed me that it was possible, and I figured, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So anybody who's interested in learning these sorts of things, this intuitive mentoring that you offer, I think is just a really valuable thing. And you do it Now, tell me, do you do it one-on-one, but you also do it in groups, or is it a combination?
Nope. I do it one-on-one.
Yeah?
And I just took another kind of crop of students in for the fall winter. So they'll go through, and then I think the next group will start up in the spring.
Cool. But you do something by teleconference as well, right?
Yeah, I do classes
Yeah.
by teleconference. So I'll get everybody together and teach them. And actually, the coolest thing about that is I'll have them do exercises in the classes.
Yeah.
And I'll even record the classes and have people later on buy the classes and do the same psychic exercises, and they still work.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I've had regressions, where they were like really tearful regressions, and then I'll have recorded them, and I'll start listening to them later, and next thing I know, tears are running down my face while I'm listening to the damn thing. So anyways.
You're going right back into the energy.
It was great. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us here at Afterlife TV. I think people probably know, we're friends as well. I got to know you. It was well over a year that we got to know each other before I finally tested you and approved you for bestpsychicmediums.com. And I've had nothing, absolutely 100% nothing but positive feedback from the people who have used my referral to work with you in one way or another. And people love it. So
Awesome.
That's a
great
compliment to
hear.
me. That makes me look better.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you. This
Good
was a lot
job.
of fun. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And we'll do it again. We'll talk about some other subjects sometime.
Cool. I'd love to.
Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome. Bye, Bob.
Bye now.